In this video, we're going to talk about MagicKey reservations upped. They're adding more reservations to the buckets. We're going to talk about monorails, trams, and Tom Holland's comments in regards to his future as Spider-Man and what that means for Webslingers right now. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Orange Grove 55. I brought my great friend with me today, Dre, Mr. Vast Sky. How you doing today, brother?
Doing very good. I was able to get some new ear pads for my cans here on the head there. And so I'm feeling pumped. I'm feeling ready. I'm feeling checked. Let's go. Let's do this.
Let's do it. So we got a lot on the books today. On the books. Let's start with MagicKey. Let's start with those reservations.
Right. So this was interesting, right? So we heard the loud cries of just about every single person on Diz Twitter and even some mainstream media figures. Some like KTLA and Orange County Register and so forth, complaining about primarily the lack of available reservations for key holders, specifically Dream key holders, because obviously they paid the most, and in order to get like weekends, for example, and no weekends were available. So it's almost like they were paying just to be blocked out, right? So Disney capitulated in their own way and added new reservations, and that's okay, maybe on the surface level, but really it doesn't take much digging to find out, like, oh, this might not be so good, specifically regarding where those reservations might have come from. And so, like we said, last time, this should be a big ol' red flag, right?
It's a trap!
That's exactly what it is. And as we found out, what I was assuming was they were just going to take available reservations away from ticket holders, right?
Right.
And then slink some of those over to key holders. But it was actually, I think it was my mother who I was conversing this topic with, said astutely pointed out they've already pretty much sold those tickets. You can't really take those reservations away, right? And it's like, oh, that's a good point. So where'd they come from? Well, all they did was added thousands and thousands of people to the overall capacity of the parks that they had no intent on actually facilitating, weeks before when they figured out the schedules and everything else. And so it's led to some painful results for guests who are in the parks today.
Interesting. Yeah, look, this whole thing with the reservations, it's a like when you have like the cups with the ball and you move them around. Yeah. That's all this is. They're just taking from one bucket and putting it into the next bucket. But there's a finite amount of people that can be put in these parks at any given time. So you're not really, all you're doing is kind of adjusting who can get in. You're not really, you're not really adding, so you're taking away from that, you're just taking away from another group, right? So to speak, is that what's happening?
Well, I mean, that's kind of what we thought that they were going to do. That's what, that's what made the most logical sense. No, they just brute forced it. They just simply added in capacity.
Wow.
Where none previously existed. And that's led to all kinds of operational headaches. If you will be so kind, sir, as to share my screen. Absolutely. Because I have Disneyland app loaded up here. And you can see today, this is, we're recording this show early morning on Saturday. I think we can say that, right?
Yes.
And it's, we have 30 minutes for Autopia, 35 minutes for Buzz Lightyear. The 30 minutes for Disneyland Railroad for some reason, 40 minutes for Dumbo the Flying Elephant. California Adventure has been hit particularly bad. 70 minutes for Grizzly River Run, 65 minutes for Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. We have 75 minutes for Haunted Mansion Holiday, 35 minutes for Incredicoaster, 80 minutes for Indiana Jones Adventure. That was closed earlier today. I mean, these parks are 55 minutes for Jungle Cruise. These parks are getting hit hard. They're getting hit hard. And again, this is before they've gone back to, what they're going to consider as back to their operational normality when it comes to cast staffing and so forth. We heard the COO say earlier this year that they plan to be back to full staffing levels at the end of the year, right? So whatever those levels happen to be, I kind of think they're not going back to their previously established levels. They've established new levels by which they're going to reach. Even going by that, I mean, they're still not back yet. We still have a very slim margin of the entertainment that we previously had. And we're seeing these kind of results here. I mean, it is a 65 minutes for Matterhorn bobsleds. I mean, this is back to kind of these pre-pandemic levels, but without the shows to absorb crowds and without FastPass.
Right.
So the fact that we're seeing these numbers here is very concerning.
Do you think this is sort of, and I know you've touched upon this many times on this show, this is by design and to sell more Genie Plus stuff?
It could be. I mean, this is
the higher the wait times, the more attractive those a la carte attract. Buying the guaranteed access and buying into Genie Plus kind of becomes, right.
I mean, maybe, possibly. It's interesting. Let's. This is very interesting here. What we're going to do is let's try to order food.
Okay. Oh man.
Let's see what the return times are for this. Look, we've got, almost, this is 11:42 right now in the AM in our show right now. I mean, docking bay 7 is an hour return.
Yeah.
Almost an hour return for Bengal Barbecue, 30 minutes for Alien Pizza Planet. You have 2 hours, almost 2 hours for French Market. Look, if it is for Genie Plus, this is, when we heard the thing about Genie Plus, the thing about the Genie system that they've implemented, it was predicated on the reservation system. They made that very, very clear. Yeah. This is just a really bad implementation of this reservations. It's like you now have the worst of both worlds, essentially, right? You now have a reservation system to contend with. And then when you do actually contend with it and successfully make it into the park, you have a very bad experience. And I've heard numerous complaints over the last couple of days, now that they've started to add in reservations to the system, of just how crowded those are. Folks, those reservations had to come from somewhere. Right. This is not rocket science here. They had to come from somewhere, and what they did was they just packed on, I would guess, anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 guests. Wow. In a park that had established new capacity practices that were under what the maximum capacity previously was. And now we're getting hit pretty hard here. So yeah, possibly this might be for Genie Plus, but this is why I bring this up, because the rides aren't the only part of your day. It's this as well. And if this is suffering, Genie Plus is not going to fix that. It's not going to fix food that we're seeing here. I mean, Little Red Wagon for corn dogs, that's an hour wait to get. Come on, I mean,
and you know what? And you know what? Speaking of the corn dog cart, I went with my girlfriend to Disneyland. This is probably, I would guess, my best guesstimate would be early August, right? So this was some time ago. This is a few months ago, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the corn dog cart was a mess even back then. Like, I was literally standing in a line with like 50 people in front of me. The line was almost to Tomorrowland. Okay. It was nuts. And a cast member, I think she was a manager, and she was super friendly, super nice. Nothing wrong with her at all. But she just offered, she said, hey, look, if you don't want to wait, I was like the last person. She's like, hey, if you don't want to wait, you can do mobile ordering. The issue, though, with the mobile ordering, as you can see here, is like, if I wait in line, I'll get fed sooner. Yeah, 40, 50 people in front of me, but at least like it'll probably be like maybe half an hour. If I do the mobile ordering, I don't eat for an hour, right? So what's my incentive? Like to do the mobile ordering? Like I'm going to eat even later than I would if I just sat here and just stuck it out and waited. And I know that was like some time ago. That was like back in early August. But I mean, it kind of rings true now still. I mean,
look at Corn Dog Castle right here. If you're in DCA and if you want a corn dog, it's 2 hours.
It's crazy.
It's worse than your experience was back then.
Right.
This is just not the way to go about this. This is not the way to go about this, to appease these MagicKey holders in this way by just slapping on capacity. And people are like, well, this problem will be solved by doing that. It's like, no, it will not. The whole thing about the Indie effect is that you can never saturate capacity. It will always be saturated by demand. It will always be. And these create the problems that you're seeing here. And, for in effect, what you experienced before when you visited last month. They might have more staff now, but now they have a lot more people to contend with. And so there's really no easy way of going about that. Honestly, what they should have done, what we talked about before with our previous MagicKey video, was they should have altered the system. Right now the system's broken, and them brute forcing it is not going to make it any better or less broken. It's just going to give people a very reduced guest experience when they actually make it into the park. And so implementing some of the changes that we were talking about before, that's what solves this issue, not adding capacity.
Right. And this is the thing. This was kind of the promise with reservations, was that, it's a hassle making the reservations, but once you're in the park, it's a much more pleasant experience, right? That's what we were sold on that. That's what we were told, but it really hasn't really worked out that way. I mean, it's a hassle getting the reservations, and then once you're in the park, you're dealing with the same amount of people and same amount of crowds as you would have before. The same, or even worse, maybe even worse lines. You're right. They do need to change the system. It's obviously not working. There needs to be something else implemented that can kind of mitigate some of this, because it's kind of a mess. It's kind of a mess.
And now, as people, I believe it was Mice Chat who picked up on this, we're back to square one again with this whole thing, because now they're realizing, reservations are all eaten up again for all the weekends for the remainder of the year. Is Disney just going to slap on capacity like they've done in this way, in this kind of shoehorned way they've done here? In the days leading up to these reserved dates becoming nearer and nearer in the calendar. I mean, this is not a sustainable system. It really isn't, because, like you said, you've now taken the worst of all worlds. You now have this horrible reservation system that you have to contend with, and then when you actually get into the parks, it's a horrible experience. And like you said, we were sold on this. It was, hey, it's going to be a much better experience for all if we do this system. Well, clearly not, because if I'm waiting 2 hours for Smoketuppers Grill, I don't really see that as a high quality experience that is worth going through these hurdles for.
Yeah, and we've all been there before. Like, not necessarily with Disney, but like, you ever make a reservation at a restaurant? And this has happened to me so many times. You'll make a reservation for a restaurant. Let's say you call up, okay, I want 5 people, 6 o'clock at so-and-so restaurant, right?
Yeah.
You get to the restaurant at 6 o'clock. I have a reservation, 6 o'clock, 5 people, right?
Yeah.
And then you still wait half an hour to be seated, 45 minutes even to be seated. What kind of customer service is that? Like, whenever I had that problem with restaurants, I'm like, you know what? I don't even want to come back. I don't want to come back. Why am I wasting my time making a reservation when I get here at the time of the reservations, I'm waiting like everybody else? I might as well not even waste my time. I might as well just show up.
Right. Exactly. And in this way, Disney might have been better served if they had done that, ironically, because then you wouldn't have created this, what I've called this indie effect, right? This kind of scarcity through insane demand that people just, they'll just see a reservation. Hey, you know what? I better just grab that reservation, just to have it. And then, I'll decide what I'll do with it day before or whatever. And now, like, you have that system to contend with. And then, like, you're lucky enough, you finally make it in. And now this, like you said in your restaurant analogy, it's like, why are we even bothering this? We're just creating more headaches. We're creating this kind of IT overhead for the parks themselves. It's much more, this is a PR disaster. You might as well not even have done this. I think there are ways to fix this system. I think it will inevitably always kind of be broken. And, we didn't go into this last time. This is all predicated on this whole idea, this notion that the parks are just, they're extremely crowded. And there's, this kind of enhanced demand for them, and we have to deal with this demand somehow. And yes, that's true. And obviously, this was building up for 10 years? You'd say. I mean,
oh yeah.
This was building up for a while. Why did it build up for a while? Was because, well, back in 2008, they said, "Oh, let's make annual passes. Let's put them on a payment plan." Because at that time, during the economic downturn and so forth, it's like we need these parks saturated. We can do it with annual pass holders. Let's make the annual passes more accessible. Right, so we can fill the park. And unfortunately, that monthly revenue, operations and TDA, they just got hooked on it, and they couldn't break themselves from it. And now it's like they want their cake and eat it too. They want everybody to be a dream key holder, or a magic key holder, I should say, and not. And control how many people actually get in with their dream key passes. It's more like a magic lock. It is a magic key, because you're being literally magically locked out. And honestly, you can massage this system. You can do things to try to fix it, but honestly, it just goes back to annual passes just being too accessible. They're just too accessible.
They're too accessible. And the simplest, easiest solution to fix the annual pass or magic key problem is, like you said, take away the monthly payments. If you have to pay $1,400 up front, chances are a lot of families can't afford that. I know I can't. I can't afford $1,400 up front. But hey, when you break it down to, $100 a month because you put a down payment and this, that, and the other, then it's affordable. Right? Then it's affordable. Take away the monthly payments and you control your demand. You don't need the fancy reservation system. Just take away the monthly payments. But like you said, it's kind of like the streaming service thing. In the entertainment world, these studios never really had like a monthly sustainable, like fixed kind of revenue, right? And they love it. They love that now. Yeah. Disney parks, it's the same thing. It's kind of like your Netflix subscription when it comes to the annual pass or your Magic Key. It's a guaranteed revenue base for Disney. They love that, and they're addicted to it. They don't want to give that up. They don't want to give that up because they know, look, if they charge $1,400 and you have to pay that up front, they know a lot of people aren't going to do that. Yeah. And it's not that guaranteed monthly thing like it would be, So it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. They need to fix it.
It is.
What do you think, Dre, in terms of like your and look, we're going into speculation town right now.
Sure.
Do you see a day where Disney says, you know what? The reservation system has caused us more drama than good. We're getting rid of the reservation. We're going to keep Genie. But we're going to get rid of reservations. Do you see a day where that could happen, or is that a pipe dream?
They're saying, Josh D'Amaro and Chapek are pushing this kind of yield management strategy. They keep talking about it. And what do they do when they mention yield management strategy? They mention the reservation system being an integral part of that. And it is. Right, it is. I don't think you can get the kind of yields they're looking for without it. I kind of personally think, well, you can have an RSVP system. You can have there are ways to measure what demand will be on that day without quite restricting people who can visit that day. But they obviously don't want to do that. And I just don't really see them getting away from the reservation system until leadership changes. Honestly, I just don't. I think they'll continue to go down this line. They'll double down. They'll try to improve it. They'll try to fix it. And I think there are genuine ways to improve the system to make it, a more, what should I say, to make it easier on everybody, to make it, this thing that works better for everybody and for each person's unique situation, right? I think there are ways to do that, but honestly, I don't think anything will be as good to a lot of the Dream Key holder or Magic Key holders, or even guests for that matter, and even out in Walt Disney World until they get rid of the reservation system. I just don't think people will be completely satiated until they do that. And honestly, it's probably something look, there's a reason why these other companies ditched it as soon as they were able to, right?
Right.
Because I don't think they had, like Disney is in a unique position. Well, they have just like hardcore fans where they just,
That's true.
They'll go through just about anything. And these other companies are like, this is a hindrance to our business. This is not an improvement to it. And people are not willing to jump to the hoops.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there are different situations. I mean, even Universal, which is Disney's biggest competitor here in California, is like nothing. I mean, look, Universal Studios Hollywood is a half-day park. I mean, it really is. Compared that to a 2-park resort in Anaheim, Disney's is like, oh, we don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? In Anaheim. I'm not talking Florida, just Anaheim.
Yeah.
So there is a demand issue here, like with Disney. It's unique to Disney. I mean, even Knott's Berry Farm. That's a locals park. It really is, in every sense of the word. Knott's is a locals theme park. They don't have nearly the demand and the people like clamoring to get in as Disney. So Disney does have a little bit of a unique situation in that, their demand is unlike anything else in the area. So I get that. The other thing I also want to say is like, how will fans react? Look, fans are going nuts. They're on Twitter. They're online. They're complaining. Oh, my God, I can't get a reservation. But you know what, Dre? I guarantee when renewal time comes next summer, I think it was like around August when the Magic Key program started, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So August of next summer, what you're going to see, and I could be wrong, and I hope I am, you're going to see everybody that's been bitching and moaning for the last year, complaining about the reservations. I'm not getting my money's worth. You know what they're going to be? They're going to be right in that fucking queue, waiting 5 hours to renew their pass. You know it.
We're dropping the F-bombs today.
Exactly
No, and God, I hope you're wrong. But I suspect you're not. What does the old saying go?
Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen.
No! It's like, oh.
Yeah. And that's the problem.
Yeah, I know. I hope personally that you're wrong.
I do too. I honestly do too.
Yeah, but I think you're right about that. Now, look, we are getting a lot of people who are saying, "Hey, I regret having bought this thing. I regret having bought this Magic Key, this Dream Key, whatever." We're getting, we're getting some people, and this is not exclusive to Twitter. We are seeing this on like the Mice Chat forums, for example, on other, like Reddit and stuff. We're seeing this from a wide, kind of vast YouTube comments. We're seeing this from a vast slate of sources and so forth, which is good. I think this kind of negative sentiment will only improve the product more than it will negatively impact it, for example, right? But something tells me, like you said, we're just gonna wake up on, I think the system didn't it debut in like August 30th or something? Like
I think so, something like that. Yeah,
whatever the day was of 2022. And the Disney's famously bad IP, it's like a meme now. It'll just go down on that day because of a crazy demand from re-ups, and it's just like, I really hope it's not the case, because there's just no incentive at that point for Disney to improve the system at all. or even to listen to you.
Right, exactly. If I have a lemonade stand, for example, if I have a lemonade stand and my lemonade is shitty as hell, it's watered down, shitty lemonade, but I'm selling a ton of lemonade a day, and people keep coming back.
I know.
I mean, what am I going to do? I mean, what am I going to do? I mean, people are still coming back for more, right? I mean, what are you going to do?
Look, people are not going to like this example, but if you straight up sell urine and people just line out the door for it, and it's like, oh, that's what they want, so let's give them urine, and that's what's happening right now, and it's so unfortunate because it's like, Jesus, break your addiction already, like, make a stand. There are people who paid $1,400 an hour. There's some people, I've seen this online. These people have paid $1,400 an hour. I don't know why I said that, but $1,400, and they're like, I can't get in. I don't like this system, but I'll probably renew. And it's like, what? Why? Or they'll like,
take that, Disney. Take that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm gonna trade my money, but I'm not gonna be happy about it, like we said before, right? And it's like, that doesn't do anything. Like, you're not moving the needle for Disney, okay? No. Or some people will just rate it high, even though they have severe problems with this product.
Right.
It's just like, oh, come on, guys. Like, just you got to make a stand here. You literally, there are people who pay $1,400 and can't get in. I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think anybody believe that that's what they were paying into. Now, we try to tell people, hey, look, you're buying into essentially a vinylmation. We have no idea how this is going to go.
Right.
We know the indicators for Walt Disney World. We know how that went. I mean, we could imagine it'll only be worse. And unfortunately, I think these things cut up faster than even we were anticipating. But at this point here, if you don't like the product, if you don't like how you're being treated, if you don't like what's happening in the parks right now, you got to take a stand.
Or at least vote in the survey. When you get the survey in the email, at least vote honestly in the survey. Look, Disney is all but begging you guys. Tell us what you think honestly. They send me surveys all the time in the email. They want to know. They bombard you when you walk into Disneyland. Hey, you want to take a survey? Hey, you want to take a survey? They want to know what you think. And if you don't tell them honestly what you think, they think they're doing a great job. And they're going to keep doing what they're doing. And especially if you keep paying with your wallet and you keep waiting in those queues, looking at that Big Thunder goat for 5 hours, nothing's going to change. Nothing is going to change. But speaking of change and things, kind of evolving or whatever you want to call it, I guess some things are starting to open them back up at the Disneyland Resort.
Yes.
The monorails. The monorails, I believe it was yesterday, October 15th, that the monorail started their operations again at Disneyland Resort, which is fantastic news. But what are your thoughts on that kind of jump starting,
Oh no, I was ecstatic. I mean, I had heard from a source that it was going to be a little while until we got the monorails back. I was hearing like winter, just because of staffing levels and where the monorails were at and so forth. In their cycle of being restored and put back into service. So when the announcement came that they'd be back, today's Saturday, so yesterday.
Yep,
I was over the moon.
Yeah.
I was absolutely over the moon because. Yeah, the monorail, yes, it's transportation-ish. It's obviously it's not quite as useful as maybe Walt Disney World's, for example, but it's just that kinetic energy. It's just that kind of that connection to a bygone time, that kind of mid-century modern kind of optimistic future that Tomorrowland was really known for, and that connection to Walt and so forth. It's just that great connection to the sky. And it does provide some useful transportation from downtown Disney to Tomorrowland. So I was really over the moon about it personally. What say you? How'd you take it?
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm always got to see stuff. Look, I'm right now since the pandy and since things have been shut. Since things were shut down. Yeah, I've been nervous in regards to the reopening. In regards to like. Disney kind of using the pandy as excuses not to reopen things ever again.
Right.
basically, basically, jolly trolleying things, right? That's what I don't want to happen. So I'm happy to see the monorails back in business, 100%. One thing that, in terms of the in-park stuff, that I really want to see back is the red car trolley.
Yes.
The red car trolley is vital to California Adventure. That adds so much kinetic energy and life to Buena Vista Street and Hollywood Land, and we haven't heard mum about that. That worries me. Now, I feel a little bit secure with it coming back because they actually spent the time to put the tracks through Avengers Campus. Obviously, they wouldn't spend the money if they were just going to get rid of the trolley altogether, right?
Yeah,
they won't spend a dime more than they have to. So I do feel eventually they will come back. But I got to say, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous about the return of the red car trolley. I want to see those return. I haven't heard anything about it. Nothing from any insiders. Nothing. No. At least with the monorails for the past few months, we've had some testing on the beams and what have you. We've seen Phantasmic testing, or they're working on the equipment. Yeah, the equipment. World of Color, they're working on Lagoon. So moves are happening with the red car trolley. It's been crickets. Yeah. I'm worried about that because that was one of the best things that came to DCA. It was kinetic energy that is so needed. And I'm really worried Disney's going to say, you know what? Do we really need to pay these cast members to go up and down the street? And I'm worried about it. But I'm going to remain optimistic. But we'll see. But I am worried.
They spent considerable expense to put in that wireless charger, that huge industrial wireless charger, in the Buena Vista Street stop, right? The stop at the front of the park there for not just the red car trolley, but for the expectation that they wouldn't have service, previously that they had established before. If the red car trolley, you knew that previously it kind of went backstage a little bit, or could go backstage for periods of time. And I think that allowed for that wireless charging, if I remember correctly, if I have that correct, I should say. And so when Avengers Campus was established, there is a pathway there for it to be brought out at the start of the day and the end of the night, but not cross those doors ever again to, kind of keep the integrity of Avengers Campus itself. And as a result, they had to put that wireless charging unit at the Buena Vista Street stop there. So they have considerable infrastructure to maintain the trolley. And it actually played a role in the kind of the Newsies show, didn't it?
It did. Oh, a huge role. Yeah, they would get on the trolley, they would sing. I love that show. Yeah. And they canceled it, understandably so. I mean, they got rid of it a few years ago when they were starting to build Avengers Campus, which I understand that. That's fine, It ran right there with Hollywood Land and all that, but they got to bring that back. I mean, that's one of the things that really sets Buena Vista Street apart, I think, from even like Main Street. It has a more urban feel. It's a trolley. It's got the overhead wires. It just feels more LA. It sets it apart, and I'd be really sad if they ended up just discontinuing that. Disney doesn't have a good track record when it comes to trolleys.
Yeah,
that's tuned down.
That is a good point. That is a very, very good point. Unfortunately, I think DCA really needs a kinetic. And that's that played a big part in the kind of reinvention of DCA back in 2012, right?
Right.
It provided that kinetic, that transportation that DCA really never had, and kind of gave this kind of living, breathing world, so to speak, to California Adventure, to Buena Vista Street, and so forth. It is concerning that there hasn't really been any chatter whatsoever. And I've looked, man. I've heard rumors for World of Color, like you said. I've heard rumors for Phantasmic. Nothing for the trolleys, and that does have me concerned. From what I understand, it really is just staffing. It's just a staffing issue right now. I know they're really below, I think, where they want to be in terms of staffing, and with everything that's going on in the world right now, I don't see that situation improving anytime soon, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, it's in limbo.
Yeah, it is. And another form of transportation that I think even more people miss, more than the red car trolley, more than the monorails even, was the trams. The trams that would take you from the parking, Mickey and Friends, over to the downtown Disney district. A lot of people are upset about this. And look, my heart goes out to the people that have physical limitations. You know, you're in a wheelchair, you're in a motorized scooter or what have you. I mean, you know, look, a lot of people, like, I'm healthy, I can walk that, no problem. Yeah, not a big deal. But if you're not healthy, if you have a wheelchair or something like that, I mean, it's a big deal. Or if you don't have a wheelchair but it's just, it's difficult to walk that extra mile or two. I mean, my heart goes out to you. I mean, that's hard. I know a lot of people kind of poo-poo that and be like, well, you're walking all day at the park anyway. Yeah, but when you add an extra mile or two, I mean, it does make a difference, you know? And
it's a huge difference.
It's a huge difference for those people. And I hope they work something out with that. Have you heard anything, Dre, in regards to those coming back?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned wheelchairs in the same kind of sentences as the trams, because we are hearing that if people have noticed an increase in ECVs and manual wheelchairs in the parks, and if people have had problems securing one, at the parks themselves, rentals and so forth, it's because people are grabbing them in order to make up for those trams not being available. And that's really kind of heartbreaking, because some people, there are some people who genuinely need those services. And when they're denied access because people are just kind of grabbing them for that, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile. I'm not sure the exact distance on the tram route, just to kind of overcome it. I mean, that's tough. And that really is. I mean, I think it would be, like you said, like a mile and a half if you include, back and forth, so to speak. I mean, it really is becoming an operational nightmare at the parks. And like you said, I mean, it's like you pay $25 just to park. I think the least they can do is offer some transportation services like they did before at that price point.
Well, I like your idea in our last video. People movers.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
absolutely.
You know what? Build a people mover. Hey, you don't look. That might be a cheaper way to do it. It might be just have a people mover type of system. Just sort of, it's like an omni mover kind of thing. You just hop on and you get to the park. It'd be great.
I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. You don't have to make it elevated either. You can just put it on the ground and people move it that way. That would be really, really cool. I don't think they're going to be doing that anytime soon. No. It's interesting what infrastructure that they're deciding to work on. I mean, look at the Submarine Voyage there.
Right? Yeah, like that is what they're spending a lot of money on that.
It looks like
we all swore, and this is what I mentioned in the video. I think our Toontown video a few weeks ago in regard to the trolley. Like, what universe, what multiverse do we live in right now, where the things that we thought they would never do, like bring the trolley back, which actually is being rumored to come back, they might be doing that, but. Like the submarines, another like kind of a dead attraction walking, which we thought was on its way out. They're infusing a huge amount of cash to renovate it. I'm like, what is going on? But then the trams, nothing. You guys, nothing.
I don't get it at all. I don't understand it. I mean, it's like weird. The Submarine Voyage. First of all, it takes an incredible amount of cast members to run that thing and operate that thing. That's always been the mark against it, for the amount of attraction cast members that you need to facilitate that attraction, and versus how much capacity you get out of that thing. I think it's less than 1,000 an hour. It's like, it doesn't make much sense to operate it. That's why Paul Presser, the first thing he wanted to do was get rid of that thing, because operationally it just doesn't make any sense. No, that story turned out. But it's like, well, now you're infusing more cash into this thing, which honestly, I think a lot of people, when the shutdowns were announced and this kind of reopening of the Zen Resort began to be facilitated, it stayed closed. And a lot of people said, look, it wouldn't surprise me if it doesn't open up ever again. And to be honest, a lot of people were okay with that, because it's just, I always love the distinct uniqueness of every single attraction at the Disneyland Resort, I think it creates this nice almost salad, this variety of experiences that you can only find this one place. And to lose a Submarine Voyage would be devastating to that notion. But it's just, is it time to reevaluate? Well, apparently not, because they're investing a huge amount of money in it, and they've got scaffolding all over that place. And I don't know if they're sandblasting that lagoon or not, but I mean, they're working on it pretty extensively.
It's funny to me, like it kind of always surprised me, because the vehicles are the biggest downside to the Submarine Voyage, because it really hinders the capacity and how many people you can cycle through that attraction. If you're going to blow a huge amount of money on the submarines, right, and renovating it and retrofitting it and plussing it or whatever, put that towards the ride vehicles. Maybe get rid of the 1950s submarines and maybe build some sort of other sub and track that can accommodate maybe a wider vehicle that can accommodate more people.
Or facilitate ease of access, right? Because it's really the loading and unloading that gets that attraction. So if you could do it in a way that, maybe a dual loading station. I mean, I've heard plans for that, and that was one of the things that was cut during the 2007 overhaul for Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage. But like facilitating, like you said, either a ride system that was maybe larger or reconfigured, or one that just enhanced that in and out.
Right, exactly. You see, that would be, I think, money well spent.
Yeah,
because then you're kind of retrofitting and renovating for the future,
right?
This is like a Band-Aid. I mean, okay, so we're gonna repaint the rocks. We're gonna, but none of that addresses the core issue though of the attraction. Like you said, the loading, unloading, address that. The size of the vehicles, maybe add more seating, make them wider. If you have to change the track, change it. That would be more future orientated. But this is just like, all right, we're going to keep doing the same thing. And, it's like, okay. And then we'll be back where we started 5 years from now.
It's so weird. And that's an attraction too. I mean, it doesn't solve some other issues, which is it takes up a lot of real estate for the amount of people it does put through an hour. I mean, look, you know how large Peter Pan is, right? It doesn't move that many people, but for its plot of land, it kind of makes sense. It's a fan favorite, whatever. This takes up way more land, and it does about the same in terms of capacity. And it's like, okay. It also takes divers, which is a kind of a specialty kind of role at the Disneyland Resort. I mean, look, folks, you want to know how expensive this is. World of Color, the platform that retracts up and down, that was specifically designed so they didn't have to employ divers every single time to maintain that experience at great expense. And unfortunately, that may have not worked out in the way they were envisioning it either. But that's what you have at the Submarine Voyage. It's like, it's just a lot of overhead, a lot of payout with not as much payoff as I think even operators of the park kind of expect.
Yeah, and I know in this like IP driven world that we live in, I know like they want a franchise tied to this attraction. So Nemo it is. Okay, fine. But man, if I could, I mean, please, I don't know, can Disney Plus make like a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea like reboot or something? I don't know, maybe they are, who knows? But do that, and I hope it's a huge hit, and then retheme the attraction to that. I would love that. Nemo doesn't work in that spot. I think the writing on that attraction, I'm so sorry. I mean, I just...
You just don't like the Nemo.
The whole ride, the whole script of that attraction is Nemo. Where's Nemo?
It's so bad.
It's so bad. I'd much rather see something like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or just I don't know, man. I even told you this, I think via text the other day. I'm like, I'll even take like this, like a Stark Industry submarine ride. Like if you need an IP attached to it, just make it Stark. But the Nemo thing doesn't work, and not in Tomorrowland, not at all.
Yeah. I agree. And there were concepts for like an Atlantis space attraction, right? Back in the day, which sounds so cool. If you didn't know how this whole thing worked out, the idea was that you were going to get it was going to be kind of interactive, and when you get seated, you just don't get a porthole, but you also get this kind of joystick, and you control this kind of claw mechanic where you can pick up treasure down below, and then the Atlantis monster, if you remember that movie, gets woken up by all of this stuff and it attacks you, and you have to kind of fight back. It sounded really cool, really ambitious, especially for the time. This was like the 90s. But it just never got anywhere, which was really unfortunate. And yeah, I agree with you. Man, if we can get a retheme on this, I like your idea. Hey, 20,000 Leagues, let's go. That is one IP. That and Rocketeer. Look. People don't like IP. I get it. I understand and I got it.
No, I know.
But those are two IPs that Disney fans would most like, and they just haven't done anything with them.
They haven't done. I know they're rebooting Swiss Family Robinson. I remember hearing about that. They're doing a Swiss Family Robinson reboot for Disney Plus. I haven't heard anything about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I don't think that's in the works. But man, I think there would be so much potential there. Yeah. I
think I did hear like percolations of Rocketeer as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Rocketeer I have heard. I heard they are rebooting that one, which is cool because, man, the score on that, not to digress too far, but the score on that Rocketeer movie was just so perfect.
So dope. It's so dope. Good. So good. To bring it back to the parks, they used to play that in Tomorrowland. They used to play that on the Orbitron. Oh, so good.
Bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back. No.
For sure. Bring back the trolley, bring back the trams, bring back maybe the Orbitron. That'd be nice so that we don't have to look at this dead thing in the park. And if you're going to bring up the subs, hey, rather than just fixing that lagoon, can we get a retheme or maybe even an upgrade for that attraction? I'll rewrite. Let's go, Disney. Come on.
Let's do it. So to kind of pivot now, we're going to talk. This is kind of a funny subject. It's kind of weird because it kind of straddles like an orange nerd subject, but then it kind of straddles an OG 55 subject. But we're going to kind of go in a parks direction with this, at least for now. Yeah. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. All right. So it says here, Tom Holland, who we all love and adore, Mr. Tom Holland, says the cast treated Spider-Man No Way Home as a conclusion to the franchise. And then it kind of goes on to say here, Tom Holland and the cast of Spider-Man No Way Home are prepared for the film to be the last of the franchise. Yeah. It's in an interview with Entertainment Weekly published Thursday, the 25-year-old actor said the film will likely be the conclusion to the Spider-Man Homecoming franchise, and actors treated it as such. So the interesting thing about this is that, like, Tom Holland, and I'll link it down below so you guys can read the whole article. But the interesting thing about this is that Tom Holland is basically saying, like, his Spider-Man in the MCU is probably done. It's probably a done deal after this movie. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, well, what the hell does that have to do with the parks? Well, it has a lot to do with it because we just built a $1 million Spider-Man ride based around Tom Holland's Spider-Man. So that's a very interesting dynamic. Now, for those of you not aware at home, the Spider-Man situation is a weird one with Disney because they have to share these film rights with Sony. There was a deal made prior to Disney buying Marvel, so it's a legal kind of messy situation. But Dre, what are your thoughts? I mean, how do you think let's just say, this pans out and this is the last movie that Tom Holland does for Spider-Man for the MCU. Is it going to affect the attraction, or do you think that the attraction's safe as it is?
Well, my insight, my instinct was probably not. I mean, look, the reason I say that is because we all know that the Avengers can't. I mean, they're actively building a Spider-Man attraction now in Paris, so this is quite interesting. But my instinct was that unless Disney does something with the attraction regarding a kind of renewed Spider-Man, and to Tom Holland's point here, he does kind of allude to that if they were going to kind of gonna kind of go back to this, it would be kind of almost a rebooted Spider-Man. Which does get the kind of wheels percolating in the head, but we'll save that for an Orange Nerd discussion. Keep it on the parks for a minute, unless they kind of go in that reboot direction and want to infuse that into the attraction. I mean, maybe, but honestly, my instinct is until that happens, until another Spider-Man really takes off, I don't really see the kind of Spider-Man attraction changing all that much. I mean, look at Iron Man for Hong Kong Disneyland, for example. Iron Man in the MCU is technically dead at this point, but his presence remains completely unaffected in the Hong Kong version of that attraction. And because there's no timeline that the MCU, or I'm sorry, Avengers Campus kind of revolves around, like there is with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. That's a whole different story. You could have a Falcon a Falcon Captain America right next to Steve Rogers Captain America, and it's pretty awesome to see that, right? So like I said before, unless a reboot really takes off and really is it does unbelievably successful and well, I don't really see much in the way of implication for the Spider-Man attraction.
Yeah, and I think this is actually partly why, in my opinion, and I'm just going into speculation land right now, but I think that one of the reasons why, and a lot of fans were upset, why didn't we get a Tom Holland animatronic in the pre-show? That would have been cool. Instead, we got a bunch of screens. I think the screens are actually kind of a forward-thinking kind of decision by Disney because they understand the legality and the legal drama issues they have with this character. And so by having a Tom Holland in screen form in the pre-show, you sort of make it easier for yourself if something happens down the road where, let's just say, for whatever reason, legal wise, Sony says, you know what, Disney, you can't use the Tom Holland version for whatever reason. You never know. Things occur, things arise.
You really never know.
Then you can swap out that screen with a different version of Spider-Man or whatever very easily. If it was an animatronic that they, an elaborate animatronic, it's a little harder to de-skin it and change it, and it's a whole big thing. So I think that's part of the reason why a lot of this attraction is screen-based, because of the legal issues with Sony. It does give Disney the option to sort of swap in and out various things if they need to down the road. So that's a possibility too. There might even be a scenario down the road where, the MCU has one Spider-Man and the Sony Spider-Verse has their own Spider-Man. There's two separate Spider-Man. They are different universes, that might be a situation down the road. Again, who knows? I mean, we just don't know what's going to happen with these two companies, but the screen-based approach for Webslingers definitely gives them flexibility going forward, though. If anything comes up like that,
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of building in this kind of modularity or this kind of flexibility that you can change that. And when you brought this up in the pre-show, I was like, wow, that's actually a good point. I think you keyed in on something really, 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 really strong there, which is they have kind of set themselves up to be flexible when it comes to, this kind of variable situation that is the Sony deal. Do we know if Disney has secured rights from Sony, or if Sony even had the park rights for Spider-Man, and what those might look like?
That's an interesting. No, I don't know. And if you guys know at home, comment below. I'd love to hear from you. But I don't know if that's, again, I'm legally, I don't know the loopholes here. Are the park rights different than necessarily the film rights?
And how does the Tom Holland version of Spider-Man interact with those theme park rights?
Right. Because I know Universal holds the theme park rights east of the Mississippi. But what's Sony's role in Anaheim in regards to Spider-Man? That's a very interesting point, Ray.
I think it is. And maybe that's kind of, to your point, maybe that's kind of why they said, let's not do a Spider-Man animatronic necessarily. Let's keep this thing flexible, because it is a fluid situation when it comes to this Sony IP here. So It is quite interesting, and let's be honest here. We could speculate when it comes to the theme park attraction. Hey, what if Spider-Gwen takes off, for example? What if Miles Morales takes off, for example?
Right.
You'd want to have that kind of flexibility, for this attraction to integrate some of those characters or character, in this attraction. So, I think maybe Imagineering I kind of knew that going into it. Obviously, we know it's cheaper. We know it's just kind of value Imagineering, as we've heard the term thrown around. But in this particular sense, this might have actually served a real purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Because imagine if I don't know, for say Indiana Jones Adventure, right? Yeah. Let's say the circumstances were different. It might have made more sense to not have Indiana Jones be an animatronic, because if Disney felt like, okay, well, in 5 years or so the rights for this might change, maybe we'll kind of have a screen at the end, instead, so we could swap out this Indy with another Indy if we have to, or whatever. There's certain attractions that and maybe in this case they thought, okay, we're going to kind of nip it in the bud. Maybe we're going to kind of address this before that happens. I don't know. It's interesting to think about, though. It is.
Well, and these things change. These parks are not in a vacuum, and these actors certainly are in a vacuum. To kind of bring this back, the it's going to be hard to bring up because these wounds are still fresh, so to speak, but. You had the Avengers E-Ticket attraction that we've heard about, talked about, and so forth. And
Right.
To be honest, that had a very strong Wakanda component in it.
Right.
The whole idea was that you were going to be in a Quinjet visiting Wakanda, and you were going to notice that something goes horribly wrong, so to speak. The kind of the thing we've seen for attractions in the past, and you were going to be put on that area of Wakanda and fight alongside the Avengers. But as a result of all that, of the inclusion of that part of the MCU, T'Challa was supposed to have a strong presence.
Right.
Chadwick Boseman specifically was supposed to have a strong presence within an attraction, and now he's gone. And so, how that changes that attraction will be interesting to see going forward, and hopefully, as we said before, that attraction still goes off, right? Because Avengers Campus, I think, really needs it, and California Adventure really needs that attraction. But
yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point with T'Challa. Things happen, and unfortunately, we lost him way too soon. And with these attractions, you have to make adjustments, and maybe Disney was kind of preparing for that when it came to Spider-Man, in terms of like the legal end of it, though,
Yeah.
And so,
and you just give yourself options down the road.
Exactly, you just give yourself that option down the road, and really in the Webslingers, to the best of my knowledge, I believe that Tom Holland only appears in the pre-show.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like Spider-Man and the rest of it.
Right.
So if it ever comes an issue down the road where they can't use Tom, well, you swap out the actor, or you just make him have the mask on the whole time or something, right?
Yeah, and for the attraction itself, or even for the show itself outside, swap out a costume, you swap out some animation, and now that attraction is updated. So we'll see, but this right here, this kind of update we have on the screen here, where No Way Home is kind of this conclusion to this specific, what is it, home franchise, is I think the Imagineers knew what they were getting into.
Yeah, definitely. And look, hey, like if there's one person in the MCU that probably says too much and probably leaks a little more than he should, it's Tom Holland. I love you, Tom. I fucking love you, man. You're awesome. Yeah, that's one thing, dude. Like,
you gotta keep your mouth shut, man.
yeah, he does. He leaks a lot. He leaks a lot, and so what he's saying is it's probably pretty true.
Unfortunately, it probably is. He just can't help himself. You got to give him a non-answer when they ask you these questions, Tom. You can't feed the press, man.
Yeah.
I had no allegiances to you.
Yeah, it's hard. And he's a young guy, he's excited to be Spider-Man. I get all that. But yeah, he's had a few issues with that in the past, which is pretty funny. And honestly, Bob Iger has taken a liking to him quite a bit. I mean, Bob Iger has praised this kid a lot. And actually, I think it was Tom Holland's phone call to Bob Iger that got them to extend the Sony deal, from what I understand.
I have heard tale that his influence directly impacted that whole thing. So, and remember, we were all kind of wondering, like, ooh, because there was some, obviously this issue where the rights were going to be reverted back to Sony while this attraction was actually being constructed, and it was like, man, how is this going to impact the whole thing? It wasn't until later that we found out, no, Tom Holland is going to be a big part of this attraction, and that his character is coming back into the MCU. It's just this kind of whole fluid thing, but maybe development-wise, it was like, animatronic. Let's hold off. Let's have the stunt-tronic, yes, but maybe let's not commit to it and the actual attraction itself. So,
yeah, and like I gotta circle back, Jen Psaki style. I gotta circle back. What you mentioned earlier with the movie rights and the theme park rights and all that legality and all that legalese. It's interesting, and I wonder how much of that comes into play here. Like for example, Sony could have the film rights to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, but maybe they have no say in regards to Tom Holland's theme park presence, right? Maybe. Legal stuff like this is very weird, and there's a lot of loopholes and weirdness going on with that stuff. There could be two separate situations for the same character.
Yeah. I would like someone, if anybody knows, please comment in the chat or reach out to us directly on Twitter with any information regarding this, because this is a very fascinating thing, and I kind of have a good grasp of the theme park rights as they relate to Walt Disney World and East of the Mississippi, as we detailed in the show before, but this one's kind of a legal gray area for me. So if anybody knows, please let us know.
Comment down below. And that concludes this episode of Orange Grove 55. I want to thank you, Vash, for coming on again, brother. Thank you so much, sir.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This was kind of an interesting one. Some details were short notice, but I was like, what else am I going to be doing on a Saturday? I got to be joining my boy Orange Grove 55 on the show. I got to be doing something here. So I was really, really glad to come on and share our opinion about a whole array of topics. And if you want to talk to me and reach out to me, you can do so right here at Vash Sky, like it's spelled right there. And if you want to see me, well, I'm on your channel, Orange Grove 55, at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice news. Your source for juice news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. There you go. You got it for the cut there. Perfect. That's where you can see me.
Perfect. And we have something coming up pretty soon, next few days. Where we're gonna start doing like live shows. So the first time in Orange Grove 55 history, we're gonna do a live show. So I'll make that official announcement pretty soon. But that's in the next. Look forward to the next week or so on a live show, and you'll have plenty of advance notice before we do go live. Sure. But we'd love to see all of you there when we finally do go live. We're gonna talk about the parks, all of it, and really dive into everything. And we'll take your super chats and your comments and your questions, and we'll dive into all of that. So it'll be a really, really fun time. First time we're going OG 55 live.
Oh yeah. And we're doing it live, folks. We're going to be off the cuff. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. If we mess up, we can't end it. No, but more importantly, we really want to have this kind of interactive show where we take in, comments and questions just live right there, and provide content for you guys in that way. So please, tune in. Let us know what you're feeling, what thoughts and questions you might have, and please comment in the chat. We're gonna be looking at that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Going live soon. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I do appreciate all the support over the last 5 years, and thank you, Mr. Vashkai, for coming on today. I do appreciate it. As always, check him out, Freshly Squeezed. You can go to my channel and check out the playlist. I got a Freshly Squeezed playlist right there. Click it, watch all his videos. He does phenomenal work. Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye, y'all.